Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. This time, Shadowplay. Shadowplay on It's All Been Tracked Before. Tracked Before. Don't you stay in the shadows. Hey, coming up, July 13th, it is the 9th anniversary It's All Been Done Radio Hour show at Boxland. Get your tickets. It's going to be the final. This is it. The final season premiere of Daniel Kravitz. Maybe we'll come back in years from now and do a Picard. We don't know. But for now, I'm getting the signal that's not going to happen. So you get those tickets. It's coming up July 13th. Boxland. It's All Been Done Radio Hour. 9th anniversary. The anniversary shows are always a blast. Get those tickets. In the meantime, pause it and then come back and listen to us talk about Shadowplay on It's All Been Tracked Before.
To another episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. The regular core hosts are back.
Yeah, this is Stephen.
Jimmy-Jerome. I know we've been missing Keith for so long now. I know he wants to catch up and because he got behind and he wanted to catch up before he rejoined us. But
can't wait to have him back.
Hopefully we'll get him back soon.
Yeah.
But we're talking Shadowplay today, which is a Deep Space Nine episode. What were your first impressions of Shadowplay, Stephen?
You know, as I was reflecting on it after the fact, I just kept thinking on what I'm going to call the A story, which is, Odo and Dax going to the planet and that.
Sure.
But I like and I ended up being very touched by that story, even though, and I'll get into that when we get there. But it was very much, I was still surprised at some elements of it, but a lot of it was very much some of the things we were getting to, but still interesting sentient beings and all that. I'd like the Jake, I don't want to go to Starfleet Academy, which makes total sense. I thought that was a good one. And, we've talked about Kira being the all-star or whatever these first couple of seasons. I enjoyed that story too. And I don't know if it's different or not. I'd have to go back and listen to our other podcast, but I like Data's Day and a lot of the day in the life things or, give me three different things. I thought this was a good meshing of three different storylines together. I wouldn't say it hung the moon, and that makes me even sorrier Keith isn't here to hang the moon or not hang the moon, but I still liked it. Yeah, I liked a lot of this episode. So not a slam dunk, but probably a layup to put sports into it. So there you go.
Yeah. So this is a very, I don't want to say classic Trek because it's not a original series made episode. It's kind of like a classic Next Gen episode in its plot.
Yes.
Before DS9 really gets into its identity, but the B and C plots support the DS9 model of the complex characters with running arcs and building the world. So they kind of mix like the old Next Gen formula with what DS9 is growing to. It's also, I saw Memory Alpha, the third mention of the Dominion and the final mention before they show up in the season 2 finale.
Okay. So
we are very close to meeting the Dominion.
I did note the Dominion mention. Yeah.
Well, and you know that most of the series is about the Dominion. So every time they mention it, I'm like, yeah, we're getting there. We're really close. Well, we got to get to the end of the season, but we're really close to the introduction of the Dominion. So that excited me. Yeah, I don't think the A plot was like the best example of the formula, but it was far from the worst example of the formula. It was a decent example of the formula. I'd say middle to middle high example of the formula.
Some things we've seen before, and I don't know if it's
with some actors we've seen before. Well,
for sure.
Anyway,
yeah. And I can't remember. It was 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. We had this is the village where no one can leave, and this one was the village where no one can leave for a different reason, which I still ended up not completely surprised, but eventually surprised. And then, yeah. I
mean, it is because Brigadoon was the most popular Broadway musical of all time, right?
Of course. Yeah.
I hadn't even heard of, I was so into musicals, I hadn't heard of Brigadoon until we did it in our high school. So, I feel like that's one of those like also ran musicals, but it is the formula. It is the formula.
I guess it is.
Sort of. I mean, Star Trek, I think, has done a full Brigadoon story before. This isn't Brigadoon, but the village nobody can leave always makes me think of Brigadoon.
Oh, like Schmigadoon.
We start this episode with a Dax log, which excited me because I always want more Dax.
Yep.
And then conversation with Odo with just gold, every bit of it. Like her talking through her gossip, her goading him, and him like, I don't do romance. And she's like, really? Because that woman's flirting with you. And he's like, what? She is? And it's just every bit of it, man. Just loved it. Loved it so much.
Yeah.
Use of Dax. Good use of Dax.
Always
I feel
great.
like she was a little backseat the rest of the episode, but the beginning.
Yes. Yep. She was just there to facilitate the rest of the episode. Yeah, I thought it was great banner. Always fun. I thought it would come back around. It kind of did, but it more came around in the sense of Odo being connected to somebody, but not falling in love necessarily or whatever. But it was still fun.
Yeah.
Always.
Odo mentions during that conversation that he considers Kira a friend because Dax was like, haven't you ever had a female friend? Which, again, we're going back to the heteronormative, especially from Dax.
Yes,
that
we
felt
are.
weird.
Yes, we
Because
are.
Dax is not heteronormative.
Right.
But when Odo said, I consider Major Kira a friend, I really wanted her to come back with what? Because, I'm sitting right here having a conversation with you. What about her? Is she chopped liver?
Right. Well, and I think part of the reason we love Dax for many reasons. Terry Farrell, attractive, fun,
wonderful actress. Yeah.
And she really imbues the character, but also just all the facets that we keep discovering to this, several. I think she even mentions it, or they even mention it in this episode of, or somebody else says, well, yeah, you're several hundred years old, so you've gone through all this stuff. You know what you're talking about. So I love all that. I think it all works. So they get to the planet, sensors aren't working. They're like, we should beam down. And then when they get there, this looks like a set we've seen before. Could there
2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago? In that image?
Could there be any trouble? Could anything bad go wrong here? When they're like, we need to beam down. I was like, does that make sense that you both beam down? I don't think so, but okay.
It doesn't make sense for one person to beam down their own either.
That's true.
It's not like when there's a starship and there's 7 senior officers.
You're right.
But there's only 2 of them. Even that by yourself's not exactly good stuff. Going with that, I propose we just talk through the Odo story and then we'll come back to the Kira.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Oh, they mentioned the 22 people missing, and man, you could tell immediately Odo loves a mystery. He just wanted to get involved. You could tell he was sniffing it. We're told this by one of the 2 Kenneths. We had 2 Kenneth guest stars this week. Kenneth Mars, who played Kolya, or whoever.
It was Kolya.
Both of our Kenneths are powerhouses with over 200 spots. Kenneth is best known for Young Frankenstein, where he played Inspector Camp. The Little Mermaid, where he was King Triton. Yeah, the producers, France Mars, What's the Flock, Land Before Time, the television series. He was the grandpa.
Yeah. He worked. Mel Brooks loved him. Woody Allen loved him. He was in the original Fletch. He's just that guy. As soon as I saw him, I'm like, all right. And he was playing
a lot of voice work.
Yeah, he's just. I wasn't surprised, but I was bummed. Like, oh crap! I think he passed in 2011.
Yeah.
But God, what a good character actor. Like, so good every time. And he did not disappoint in this. He played that perfect, serious but still funny, but still we love this guy. Yeah, it was just.
Well, his whole thing, it would be so easy to fall into the trope of somebody we hate when he's holding them at gunpoint.
Yeah.
And yet, it was just like, dude, you don't have us. He's like, yes, I do. And he's like, no, you don't. Beam back. Oh, okay, I don't. He's totally non-fazed by it and takes it so well because he's not really trying to capture them, right?
Yeah, he's perfectly cast for that. And I also thought it was going to be like, oh, this is the Commodore role, as we've talked about.
Oh, the gun was extraneous. The gun should have never been a part of it.
Yeah. Yep.
That was a misstep on the writer and or director. I don't know. It was written by Robert Hewitt Wolf, one of the producers, and directed by Robert Shearer, a regular. So I don't know where the next gen regular director.
Yeah.
So I don't know where the disconnect was, but that gun should not have been part of it. It should have just been like, hey, can we have a conversation? You're strangers. Let's go talk in my office.
Yes.
Would have gone.
Yeah.
You didn't need to be threatening.
Yeah, I agree.
He scanned for transporter energy, and yet he seemed completely clueless about the transporter when Odo used it. So he knows what transporters are, but doesn't block against them?
Yeah, I couldn't figure that out either. He understood he understood it, but was surprised by it. I didn't make sense.
Odo repeated something he said before, that he doesn't do faces very well when he's talking to the little girl. But what I ask about that is, in flashback to 10 years before this, when we saw the flashback episode, Odo's face was the same. So he's never tried to improve it. And then again, for 7 years on DS9, it never gets any better. So I get that if you don't do it well, I would think he'd practice it. I mean, I guess at some point, it's now just a test of how people treat you. Right. And he hints at that here, but it never relates to the face. And I really felt they could have tied that in to better explain his character, that, they used to judge me because of my unfinished face. And then I learned to keep that because that let me take a measure of people, but they didn't go there. So instead, it's just like, oh, I can't do it, and I don't even try to fix it. That seemed bad. Changelings are make-believe to the people of the village, as the little girl says. We should mention the little girl, Taya, played by Noli Thornton, who you may remember from the Next Generation episode, Imaginary Friend.
Okay, that now, yeah,
and the creepy. Sense. Yeah, we talked about her then, so we won't get into her, but it was nice to see her return because she was such a cute little girl in that episode, and then very different cute little girl in this episode. Like, she was actually creepy in that one. This one, she was more just loving, and you want to... Yeah. But yeah, the whole changelings are make-believe was my first clue that Dominion was going to play into this, and that there was some secret, because a village where nobody leaves, you're close to Dominion territory. I was like, okay, so this is... Whoever's created this town is trying to just ignore the Dominion while knowing they exist. And that's the impression I got out of the story. And maybe you did it because of the breadth of understanding. But that was a big red flag in retrospect on a repeat viewing.
Yeah, for me it was, well, there's something else going on here. And then, once we get to the reveal, like, I wasn't surprised. I didn't know it was a holograph. But then once it's revealed that, our guy is not a holograph, I was surprised. I was surprised. And then I was like, no, that makes sense. And I just thought I liked that aspect of the story. I thought it was very touching.
You're talking about when they revealed that Rorigan, played by the other Kenneth Toby, was not a hologram. Yeah. He's best known for Inner Space, where he played Man in the Rest of the 1987 movie. Airplane, where he was Air Controller. We already reviewed that. Well, we reviewed Airplane too.
That is where I remembered him from. Yes.
He also did some old sci-fi, The Thing from Another World. Stephen Burr, who's one of the DS9 producers, said that Kenneth Toby is like his favorite actor of all time, and was like so thrilled to get him to do this.
This is, and I have to do it just because I'm contractually bound by the IBTB contract. Do not look at his political life on.
Oh, don't tell me.
But I will say he passed away in 2002, so there's nothing Trump related.
That's good, because back in 2002, Republicans were just starting to get awful.
But his best friends were a lot of the Un-American House Committee. The way that everyone else loves him and uses him makes me think. And that was it. I didn't do any more digging, so I scratched it.
Back then, you could ignore somebody's politics because the politics weren't the fate of the country.
He wasn't on it.
As long as you weren't racist.
Yeah. I didn't do any more digging, so I may be painting with too broad a brush. I want to believe that, and this is Wikipedia, so who knows?
Yeah.
But I want to believe that, because all the people that cast him in late day I feel like they're like us. And either they were just like, we don't care if he's...
You mean white men?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know his politics other than he was friend. And you know what? I'm doing what they did on the Un-American House Committee. I'm saying, you're friends with these people, so you must be a terrible right-winger. So you know what?
Or just leave that to Patreon.
Yes. Do your own research. You know what? That doesn't sound good either. But do it, because I did not do it yet. But I always
actually keep in mind. I think do your own research is still a valid thing. You just have to actually evaluate your sources, which is the part that the people that say do your own research erroneously don't do.
Getting online to see if an actor help blacklist people is one thing. Getting online to do your own medical research yeah. Don't go to WebMD. You know what? Go to WebMD if you want to think you're dying. But if you're a hypochondriac like me, that's why I don't go to WebMD.
I was not surprised to find out it was a hologram, because they had mentioned earlier in the episode he was one of the founders of the colony. So once it became clear with her the little girl reaching through, that it was a hologram, was that when her arm disappeared, I figured that out because I had forgotten the twist. Yeah. But once that happened, I was like, oh, well, he's the founder that's left, so clearly he knows what's going on.
That makes sense.
So yeah, I kept waiting, like everybody disappeared. I was like, wait, he's got to be there. And then of course you go around and you see him, and I was like, yeah.
I was surprised, and the way they shot it was actually really good. Yeah. I thought, all that said, I thought it was good. And is this the natural evolution of I just said holograph. holograph evolution is you just live in a world of holographs.
Yeah, I mean, so my alternate episode to jump to there is that this place becomes actually important to the story going forward. It doesn't. We never see it again. But I don't think that's a spoiler. I really don't. Yeah. But I do think other Trek going forward is going to explore the holograms as sentient individual type thing. DS9 does it a little bit, sort of, with Vic Fontaine, their lounge singer. Voyager does it a lot with the emergency medical hologram we'll get to.
And you touched on it with, it's one of my favorite moments of TNG is one of the Picard detective guy.
Oh, Dixon Hill?
Yeah, when he's talking to his lieutenant's like, and kind of realizes like, oh man, this guy's just a program. I mean, it's kind of and I think that's a very evocative. Is not the right.
This build on that. Star Trek is going to be thrilled enough with this concept to build on it further down the line. They just never go back and pay homage to the steps that led up to it, and I kind of wish there had been a connecting thread through it.
Well, and I think this just makes me think of that Black Mirror episode with our guy Jesse Plemons, which kind of go all the way back. I mean, it obviously alludes to it. He's on an Enterprise, more or less. Yeah. So, but in that sense. And, there's, these days, scientists, I feel like, I don't know if we're at 50-50, but we're getting close that we might all be a computer simulation. It makes as much sense as anything else.
Yeah. The other aspect of that story is Odo, because we haven't seen a ton of his humanity and his characterization. We know he's missing his people. And I really loved his relationship with the little girl more so than I love like Data's relationship with the little girls that we've seen. Like, I really connected with the story when she's asking him to change, and he says, "Well, people asked me to change, and they didn't really want to be my friends. They just wanted to see me change." I think first of all, testament to the young actress. She was wonderful.
Yes,
but she clearly got, and because she got, it was easy enough for us to get that. Okay, well, I'm not going to ask Odo to change anymore. Really, because other than like the story of the bread and the gobbling up, which was so cute.
Right.
But it was very much, she got the point. Like, no, I'm not going to be the guy or the type of person that asks him to change for fun, because that's not being a true friend. And I loved their connection and the relationship they had and the dynamic they had.
Yeah, I think it builds to that ending, which I think is very touching with those two. Yeah. I thought it was well developed, and these fake people made me very teary-eyed about other fake people.
They felt real.
Actors getting upset about other things that are fake, and they're pretending to be other people. So,
just to like call out something about how authentic they seem is Collius, when they're showing him the hologram thing, they make his cloak disappear, and he's like, "Well, that was my favorite cloak," and you're just like, "Oh, dude, I know you're fake, but I still want you to get your cloak back."
Well, it was so kind of the Mars, like, and I knew you were gonna say it. It still made me laugh.
It was perfect. They really did a good job of making you care about these people for a one-off.
Yes, yeah.
A problem I had with the script is, and I'm sure this was a location thing. So obviously, the village square set was on a soundstage, whereas the tree where they test tying his arm is out on location, which is way more expensive to film. So we're told they took the whole village out and showed them that, but then they all walked all the way back to the town square to talk about it. And they were having the argument like they just witnessed it.
Right.
If that were true, they should have had the argument on location. That was clearly a budget-saving thing that did not fit with the story.
I did have
that bothered me a little. I feel like at that point they should have just showed him all the cloak trick or disappeared a person in the square, because that would make the story feel better and it'd still save the budget.
Yeah, and I had the thought when they were all yelling, and then I'm like, how are they making out different voices? Because I don't know if
I guess making a person disappear would have been way more cruel, and Dax and Odo were handling this very compassionately.
Yeah.
So it was really a writing trap that was conflicting with budget. That if you did it right by the writing, you were screwing up the budget.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I've definitely been in crowds where I was angry, but we were mostly booing. Or, well, you know what? No,
were you angry enough to go to a second location and have the yelling fight?
No, these were mostly Detroit Pistons games where I was yelling things. But as I was watching, I was like, "What are these people yelling that they think they're going to hear it?" And now, as we talk about it, I'm like, "Oh, you know what? I did it all the time." I didn't just boo. I was like, "You suck, Jordan," or whatever, and nobody.
Oh.
And I'm pretty sure he couldn't hear it above it, because when they're all yelling, they're just like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" Why are you? I had the thought, like, why are you yelling? Nobody can hear you. He's like, "Oh, you know what? I've done that." So it makes sense to a point.
My next thing about this plot, I was really surprised that Ono and Dax, like you, did not guess that Rorgan was real. It felt like they should have figured it out.
In hindsight, it makes sense, but I did not see it.
It seems so obvious to me. I couldn't believe Dax and Ono, as smart as they are, and I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about being the detective.
Right. And honestly, if Odo had figured it out, but not Dax, that would have felt artificial to me for Dax, because she's a smart cookie as we get to know her better.
Dax, yep.
That would have been really annoying to be like, oh, so the girl didn't figure it out, but he did. That would have been annoying.
Right. Yeah.
Morgan says he doesn't think of the holograms as real, and he's ready to go back to wherever. I think at that point he's lying to himself to try to cope with the loss. Yeah. I think because it's very clear once they start questioning him, he really does care for them. I think he's lying to himself. Coping mechanism. Easy.
It's a concept we've talked about or dealt with in different variations in Trek and other parts of sci-fi, but I think the way they frame the question in this episode, the people in the episode, the characters, makes it be like, well, these are just computer things.
Yeah.
But I think 30 more years and other stuff has been like, and they say it like, well, what's the difference? Is there a difference? And I to that point, I think they're ahead of their time. They're on it. They know where this is going.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool.
And Oda and Taya's goodbye was just wonderful.
Yeah. Well done. Good child actor, Renee Aubernois, doing a
great child actor. To match Renee Aubernois, who, in my opinion, is awesome. They seemed on the level.
And his character stays true to what he is, but it was still heartbreak. I like I said, I teared up at these fake people.
Really want to know how Noli Thornton,
these other fake people.
I really want to know how Noli Thornton didn't have a career. How she only has 17 credits.
I just did the Wikipedia and I didn't go beyond that because it's like, no, she had all these things. She did pretty good, and then
she's actually my age.
Okay, well.
She was born in 1983. That's I didn't realize I was that young when this episode.
Yeah, I did not do deeper digging on her, but I was surprised that was all she had.
Yeah, just in the 90s. I don't know if she just decided to give up. She was nominated for a Young Artist Award twice. Once in the category of Best Young Actress for starring in the Disney Channel miniseries Heidi. I don't know. Maybe she's just one of those people that was like, oh, I did that as a kid. I don't want to do that. I don't know. But I feel like she could have had a career.
Yeah. I thought she was. Yeah, she was so good in this.
She was. I'm actually Googling right now. Why did she stop acting? But there's really no, I don't see anything. So while we're still on the storyline, I usually make the thing like, oh, wow, this village only has 30 people. I feel like here it might make more sense that our guy once.
Yeah. Our guy was like, you know what? I don't have the imagination for 30 other people or 40 other people. I don't want to go beyond this.
He probably started with just a handful of people, honestly. Whatever felt the minimum for a colony. Yeah. And then just build it back up.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah, it looks like her husband's been reported, but she keeps her personal life out of the media, which would be easy to do if you're not currently in the media.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really don't know, but she's so good in both of the Star Trek episodes. It just bumps me out. Anyway. But I don't have any more notes for the Odo plot. Do you before we jump back?
I think that's it for me. I think so.
Okay, let's do Kira and Quark. We start out with Kira catching Quark, who's obviously trying to get one over because Odo's gone. When she chews Quark out, it says, you were a collaborator with the Cardassians. We do know that because of that flashback, but I feel like this is the first time in 2 years of the series where he's really been called out for being like, no, you were one of those people that worked with the oppressors. The fact that Odo and Kira even tolerate him in the slightest is astounding to me.
Yes.
When you call that out.
I agree. I thought it was like, oh wait, this is the fun. I like this funny guy. It's like, oh well, you know what? Oh crap!
It gels with Quark's character to know that,
it does.
He always feels like he's right on the line, but not crossing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so but if he was a collaborator with the Cardassians, that's crossing it. That's choosing a side.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure, and this could be retroactive, and I don't remember the details, so I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure we find out later that there were redeeming things he did during the occupation, that he wasn't, he was not just a collaborator. Like, people thought he was a collaborator, but he was secretly undermining things. Pretty sure, because you have to for us to like Quark, right?
Well,
if you take all of his actions together, you have to do that. Either they do that or redemption, and they're not going to redeem him. So you have to justify.
If you're a Ferengi, you got to go both ways, right? Because that's probably the best way to make money, right?
Well, one of the rules of acquisition is war is good for business. And another one of the rules of acquisition is peace is good for business. So, yeah. But I feel like Quark is not the perfect Ferengi. Part of the reason why he doesn't succeed the way some of the other Ferengis does is he actually has a heart. And we see it come through in glimpses.
Mm-hmm.
But again, while it is consistent for him to be a collaborator, it's also consistent, I think, if I'm pretty sure it happens, I could be wrong, that they retroactively say, nah, he was secretly helping the Bajoran resistance, because I feel like he would.
Yeah.
And I'd be really disappointed if he wasn't. But the fact that he doesn't speak up now and say that to Kira is also out of character.
I like the duality's not right, but the ambiguousness of his...
Yeah. But calling him a collaborator removes the ambiguousness and puts him firmly in the villain column, and that's why that threw me a little bit. Bashir can't wait to spy on Quark, which is, I mean, you don't have room for a D plot in this episode, but maybe if it was 60 minutes instead of 44, it would be kind of fun to see Bashir nerding out and spying, because that never comes back. And the whole thing, like, Garrett taught me this stuff, I can't wait to do it. I'm like, I want to see more of that.
That's such a great throwaway. And it ends up being a throwaway. Yep.
Well, I think it's in there to justify why Kira's okay with taking her eye off the ball, that she passed it to somebody else. But
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Quark thinks Kira's distracted with Bareil, so he can go. So Odo's gone. Oh, Kira's obstacle. Okay, I'm going to distract Kira. He's got his multiple layers of plan in there.
So at some point, Kira talks through her communicator, and we've probably talked about this before, and she hears back from Cisco. I think it's Cisco she's talking to. How do they hear that?
Oh, the same way they do in any Star Trek. There's a speaker in there.
Okay, so it's just coming from her chest.
Yeah.
Not to be vulgar, but...
She's talking to her boob, yes.
Yeah.
I'm honestly more impressed they can make the Bajoran symbol play nicely with the Starfleet symbol, but those are just exteriors.
Someone from around here can hear what she's hearing.
I assume so.
I guess that makes sense.
I mean, on Starfleet ships, there's nothing to hide. Right? So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And these are Starfleet communicators, even if they put a Bajoran plate on the outside.
I guess if you didn't want anyone here, you would just use some other device. So I guess that makes sense.
You can go into a room to make the call. Yeah.
Yeah.
They go into the Get Smart office and the giant bubble comes down over top of that.
the cone of silence. Yeah.
There you go.
This is one of my fashion notes this episode. Fashion. When Kira goes out with Bareil. Why is she dressed like Rambo? I mean,
playing spring ball.
Most of it's the headband, but is that?
They were playing spring ball. That's like athletic workout.
Spring ball, and then they just went. Well, you know what? I can't. I played softball and a bunch of other games and going right to it. Okay.
All right. Go home and shower and change after the spring ball, because at that point she doesn't realize she's still in denial that it's a romantic thing.
Yes,
they're just being friends. I definitely think she's interested in him. I think she's not letting herself believe it's a romantic possibility until he's like, yes, it is. I'm interested in you.
I enjoyed their makeout scene for a number of reasons. Making out's great, but it was very reminiscent of...
Bajorans kiss wild. They're all over the place. They're not anything.
That's a good note, too, because at first I'm like, what kind of kissing is it? What? Are they in high school?
They're still playing spring ball.
Yeah. I was like, this is a bit much. And then I was like, oh, they're kind of doing I thought they were doing the Hays Code thing of like, well, you can't, they had a limit of how long they could kiss. So Hitchcock was like, you know what? Kiss, say a line. Kiss, say a line. And that's what they ended up doing. And then I don't know where you know what, I knew she was going to stop kissing him, but I like that I like the way they dragged it out. So it was like, oh, she wants to keep doing this, even though it, like, I feel like we realized, like, oh, this is the deal. And she did too, but she was like, all right, I'm going to keep kissing and talking. And all right, nope, I got to go take care of this.
Like their romance. I think they make a good couple. I've always been a fan of them as a couple. Yeah. Obviously continues past this episode because this is Deep Space Nine, not Next Generation. So
yeah, and he's my annoying. Just I'm not sure why, but I think I like him. But I just thought his delivery sometimes is weird. But he ended up being my annoying. But I do like the relation. I like the relation. The relationship is not annoying.
I hope you. I was gonna say, I hope you do because it's going to continue to develop. It's not
all right.
Done.
Good.
Yeah.
I like it.
But going back a little bit, I really liked the chemistry they had where he was asking her what she thought of his sermon, and she passionately don't disagree. I passionately disagree. I like him distracting her and being like, okay, that's fine. Let's go play spring ball.
Well,
but it was great. Because Kira couldn't be with someone that's a pushover that she disagrees with on things. So I like the spark of the dynamic.
Yes. And
so I really liked which side they both came down on too. That she was the one that took scripture the way it was written. He was the one turning it on its head. And while she didn't actually disagree, I also think she probably liked that he made her think about it and appreciates that he's a Vedic, essentially a priest or a rabbi, that doesn't just take the faith at face value in the book. He's not an originalist. He's not Clarence Thomas with the law. He thinks about it and questions his beliefs, which is a nice aspect of his character and part of why I like Barial.
Yeah, I thought that was another aspect where I was like, and you know, when I was thinking about the episode today before we got to where we are now, I was like, oh yeah, there's these other B and C storylines that I really enjoyed a lot too, for so many reasons. And I think that's one of it, is that I feel like with those, and you're going to have an A, B, and C storyline, and again, we've talked about DS9 being more like, well, we're going to come back to this, as opposed to the previous series that came before.
Yeah.
But I think part of it is, you know, just like, all right, we're going to leave some of this open-ended, so you guys figure out what you think right now, and then we can either subvert that or play into it or whatever. We can do whatever we want with it going forward. So, yeah.
I think they've done a good job of villainizing Vedic Wynn at this point.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
because if you've forgotten, they are still in an election that we haven't seen the results of yet, but that will be picked back up. And so, but there wasn't any reason to root for Barial yet, except not win. And I feel like just these minor lines of characterizing him is like, no, now I actually want Barial to be the Kai because he seems to have good sense.
To be fair, Vedic Wynn has made herself. She's villainized herself.
Yeah, but you don't want to just vote. You don't want to be just anti-Wynn vote. You want to actually root for Barial, right?
Yes. Yes.
And that election will pick back up this season. So we'll get back into it on who's going to be the Kai.
All right.
But yeah, we'll have Barial again this season and win before the season's over. So the last thing about that plot is, of course, Kira figures out that this is all still part of Quark's distraction. He got Barial to come on there because he realized there was an attraction even before Kira herself did, I think, which was great. But then I was a little confused by that final season scene where she goes to tell Quark, hey, your cousin tried to sneak back on. We caught him with the goods. We arrested him, because they could have just waited and done a sting when he handed the stuff over to Quark. And if she truly believed Quark was just a collaborator, I would think she'd be looking to put him away. And that's the way she should approach it. Whereas the way we were left was very much you did me a favor by bringing him here. I'm doing you a favor by letting you go, even though we caught your cousin. I'm sincerely grateful you brought him here. That's the way it came across to me with the thanks at the end.
Yeah.
Instead of, ha ha ha, I got you. That was part of it, but there was a sincerity there that if we're just thinking of Quark as a collaborator is undeserved.
Yeah, I agree.
Bothered me a little. I think, again, retrospect to the whole series, we're not going to feel so bad about Quark and her letting him get away with it. But in this scene,
right now,
bad to let him get away with it.
Yeah, because it seemed bad. And it's like, nah, don't worry about it. It's cool.
Yeah, it was very playful. It wasn't mean. And it wasn't I really wanted to catch you and you got away. It was very like, we caught your cousin. I got my eye on you.
Yep.
Anyway, ready for plot C?
Yes. I think that's most of what I have left. Yes.
I was a little confused at Jake getting the job helping O'Brien because do they let kids do Starfleet duties? That seems not appropriate.
It's, you know what? The thought I had was very utilitarian, which was, is this an unpaid intern job or is this a...
Yeah, it's unpaid intern.
Okay.
But Starfleet just works on credits. Earth is past capitalism. They're done with money.
That's right. Well,
so they don't need to be paid.
So this goes right into my next question. Is Jake a Nepo baby?
If he went to join Starfleet, I think you run into that danger because we've certainly seen that Starfleet is not as pure in its ideals that it could be. Yes. But he's the anti-Wesley. So when Wesley would help Geordi out or get his acting ensign, it felt like that was because he was really trying to be in Starfleet and they were doing some type of mentorship, whereas this felt like Jake's part-time job instead of serving the slop on the stick is working for engineering, which felt like that shouldn't be a part-time job and should not be happen with Junja or whatever. So that's where I was disconnected. With Wesley, it felt it made sense. With Jake, it didn't. I also really love they took these two child characters in very different directions. Yeah. Have we ever had a major Star Trek character that doesn't want to be in Starfleet before? I don't think so.
Which is what led me to my other thought, which is like, and this is a Star Wars thing too, but this is a Star Trek podcast. I don't have enough for that. This is not going to be the Star Wars part of this podcast. But they do the same thing there, which there might be another instance of Star Wars ripping off Star Trek. But I feel like Sisko should want his boy, and again, I'm not a military guy, so maybe this is not the way it should go, but should he want him to go to the Harvard of the galaxy or Princeton and that's not like the Ivy League, whatever.
I honestly think humanity, as portrayed in Star Trek in the 24th century, has moved beyond those things. And I think Sisko's reaction is what a typical 24th century father would react to. Obviously, with O'Brien's example, not everybody lives up to that ideal, but Sisko's our hero character, so he has to live up to the ideal.
His reaction is fantastic and beautiful.
Right. Very anticlimactic in a good way.
Yes. And also, I love the Jake and O'Brien scene. And it's another scene where I'm like, oh. And I love every time, and this is something you've been foreshadowing for 4 seasons of TNG, or maybe more, of like, oh, you're going to love this guy. And when O'Brien tells his story of like, well, here's the thing I went through, it's like, it's revealing. It's revealing about the character. It's interesting. And it opens up a whole nother world within this world that we've grown to learn about. And
they retconned why he played the cello in that one episode of Next Gen.
Yeah, right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And at the end, he's like, well, if you don't want to do this, then just tell your dad don't do it if you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And
it was pretty clear from the beginning when Jake can't even keep track on the isolinear rod colors that he didn't want to do it. That's as simple as it comes.
I started trying to keep track and I was like, okay, this could be tough. And then when O'Brien's like, no, you'd figure it out. I'm like, yeah, I would. Because I had worked on lines that day. I was trying to remember the lines. I was like, yeah, I'd get it down pretty quickly.
And you're talking about floor color.
Yeah.
That reminds me of my father always... my father was building our house when I was growing up. Ages 3 to 5, we lived in a camper at the edge of the property while we built the house. And as I was the oldest, he always made me do all the work on the house and the barn and the pool deck and all the things he built afterwards. And he would still ask me for a tool, and I can't remember what it was called. And I would get punished. I would get punished for attitude or lying or whatever. And I wasn't lying. I just really didn't want to do that crap and didn't care about it. And so I saw a lot of myself in Jake Sisko in that moment. And I'm like, that is a big giant flag. And unlike Ben Sisko, my dad didn't take the hint and he kept forcing me to do it. But Ben Sisko was like, yep, understood. I just want you to be happy. Which, to be fair to Ben and my father, Ben Sisko and Jake Sisko live in a world where you can just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Our capitalistic system, you can't just do whatever you want.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm about to be very jealous of Jake's career trajectory. To give a slight spoiler hint. But yeah, good for him. I'm glad he gets to pursue his dreams in a way that I struggle to.
Well, and I guess, again, that's my thing is like, and I try to think of it as like, in the Star Trek world, do we really see like the other career paths?
No.
people.
Until we get to DS9, because DS9 is the first show that shows us characters outside of Starfleet in any real way.
Okay. Well,
right.
And this okay, now it is the Star Wars part of this podcast, because this is another problem I have with Star Wars at this point, which is, you're either a bounty hunter or you're the Empire or you're rebels. And I guess I don't no. I reject that, because even this modern world, I'm not going to bring up Israeli Palestine again. I just did. But that's the biggest, I shouldn't say it's the biggest problem, but if you're in a war zone, your biggest thing is I still have to do my everyday thing. I'm running a business, or I'm taking care of my family. And this is just based on me watching the document. This is me from my white United States privilege, but I feel like, for me, I feel like there's got to be some other path in the Star Trek world where people are like, oh, this is what I really want to do. And well, I guess we've talked about, we've talked about this, is like, I feel like Ambassador is the rock and roll part of the Star Trek world. But I also think, like, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's a bigger conversation. Like, would you rather be Joe Biden, or Taylor Swift, or Jalen Hurts, the quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles? I don't know. Oh, I know my answer. Jalen Hurts for the Philadelphia Eagles.
I would have chosen Joe Biden.
I can't do that anymore. So
those three choices, I would have chosen Joe Biden. But
yeah,
I would have thrown out Stephen King or John Grisham instead as my ideal. Right?
Yeah. So, and I feel like that's what we're missing in the Star Trek world. But I also understand we have an hour each week, and this is what we're focused on.
Yeah.
But if we're world building, it feels like if Jake's like, I want to go do this, because and he shouldn't. He's 15. He shouldn't really know what he wants to do.
He hasn't established that. They're going to
do that. Yeah.
The DS9 will follow him on his career path, but they haven't established it yet.
All right. Well, I'm looking for it.
Every character on the original series, main character, most of the reoccurring, were Starfleet. Next Gen, Wesley was the only one who wasn't Starfleet, but he so wanted to be Starfleet that he might as well have been Starfleet.
Yeah.
We get to DS9, and Quark and Odo are both very much not Starfleet. Odo can coexist with Starfleet, but Odo is not Starfleet, and we get that in bits and pieces. Kira is not Starfleet either, but on a growth trajectory that could eventually get her there, right? Like, you can see right now the clear dots that could get her to Starfleet one day if she so wanted. I'm not saying whether she would want to or not, but you see how she would fit in with it.
Yeah.
Odo would not. Odo is fine working with them, but he's not. He's an outsider. Quark is way an outsider. So I think it's really interesting they then chose to make Jake an outsider too, if you don't want to go down that path. And I think it gives us another perspective later on in the series when the whole series becomes Starfleet War. Yeah. Having more characters outside of that, it really helps tell the story. And I will say Jake has a role to play in future seasons because he's not Starfleet. Whereas if he was Starfleet, it would be really hard to see how he'd fit in. So,
well, and we've had some of that in DS9 already, where it's like, oh, I'm not Starfleet.
Yeah.
And I guess it plays into, I'm going to throw it out to the great part of the galaxy, Gene Roddenberry. I think his utopian version or vision for the future was also tied to a military version of the future. So it's hard. The mix is hard to figure out. And I think DS9 is like, this is hard to figure out.
Yeah. But DS9 actually does spend the time and the effort to figure it out.
Yeah.
Voyager honestly pretends they're going to and then doesn't really. Yeah. So I appreciate that DS9 does.
And I guess, again, to bring it back to our real world politics, it's hard. It is a tricky thing to be a leftist like me and you and be like, we want peace, but we also get that, you know what? It's nice to have these bombers ready to go. But so some people complain that DS9 is too war and too militaristic, and it gets there. But the thing, as it goes on, not yet. It makes sense to me, but continue.
But that's the thing. Like the other, even the new Star Trek, it's very Starfleet. Of course, now they really double down on that exploration as the main mission, and war is always secondary, which it always was. But I feel like they better exemplify that later. But with DS9, having the major Starfleet war element, there's so many non-Starfleet elements that I think really balance and build out the world in a good way.
Well, I guess I go all the way back to where I started, which is I want people that aren't in Starfleet, so that makes sense.
And Jake is not in Starfleet, nor will he ever be. He's not going to change his mind in 2 seasons. He's not going into Starfleet. I will say the way he said the line to Ben, I read that Starfleet is too much like you. That was a stinger of a line, and that was the line I actually wanted Ben to react on. Like, accepting your child doesn't want to do with Starfleet, totally cool. Sure. Accepting I don't want to be like you, Dad, that's harsher.
That's hard. Yeah.
Rough. And that's the way he chose to phrase it. And I think it's only because Ben really wants what's best for his child that he can let that go in the moment.
Yeah.
Because I really wanted to see him hurt there, not about the Starfleet, but about the way they had Jake deliver it.
Yeah.
And he wasn't. He was fine.
Yeah. I feel like it's repetitive just to say that was another good scene.
I think what also helps, and we'll find this out, we haven't met Ben Sisko's father yet, but he's a recurring character on the show.
Okay.
And he's not Starfleet. Whereas I feel like...
No, who's his dad? Is it an actor?
Joseph Sisko. Joseph Sisko? The actor, I don't remember the actor's name.
Okay.
But he's a chef, which we've hinted at, or mentioned, I think, already.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because, Picard didn't come from Starfleet people, so many of our people either came from Starfleet or Starfleet adjacent backgrounds, or ambassadors or whatever. Ben came from a New Orleans chef. And so I think for him, it's much easier to see a non-Starfleet path because he grew up in a non-Starfleet area, right?
Yeah.
So that plays into that. But the ABC plot's actually connected pretty well. There's a whole thing about identity and fitting in that actually threaded through all 3 pretty well, despite them seeming so disparate.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So A+ job to the writer of this episode. We already talked about writers, didn't we? Robert Hewitt Wolf. Good job. Sure. He had some weaknesses in the A plot, but the B and C were super solid for the most part, other than the quirk that I had. But anyway, anything else for rank?
I have 2 other notes. I can't remember who mentions first meal, but it just made me think that somebody at Taco Bell was like, "Oh,
hobbits serve in Starfleet now.
Let's get to 4th meal." Yeah. The other one is just fashion. All the beads of the holograph world. Everyone had beads and beads and beads.
Those were ridiculous.
Yeah.
I did listen to my Greatest Gen guys. They're like, if somebody with a beaded seat in their vehicle got in a car wreck and then just let the beads hang on them and kept it there for the rest of their life.
Yeah. Yeah. They made no sense. But I was like, okay, all right, you're going with this. Huh. Yeah. Oh, and my alternate episode was Odo in Space Vegas. And I was like, what does this mean? So essentially it was, hey, be a loaf of bread. Yes, loaf of bread. Hey, be a 1973 Volkswagen Beetle. Yes. So yeah, that's my alternate episode.
Could have done a mega show, sure.
Odo taking a request.
I think that's probably what he did back in the day and learned better.
I think, he can do it.
Who's your shady character?
Oh, sorry, I had one more note.
Yeah, no, go for it.
The name of the episode is Shadowplay, and I don't actually know what that is, but I do know it's a song by the band Joy Division. And it was covered by the Killers, and I enjoyed both versions, so I would invite everyone to check those out. I'm sure Shadowplay actually means a certain thing that I should know since I'm in theater. We're in theater, but I do not know.
It is like when you use like the paper cutouts to make the shadows on the wall. I'm guessing it's because it was an allusion to the holograms, that they weren't real. They were just that
makes sense. Anyway, those 2 songs, Google them. They're both on YouTube. I like both versions, and I love the Killers. Joy Division, I haven't seen and will never see live. Well, I think there might be a version of them running around, but the Killers I saw this year, they were great, and I think actually I saw them play that. So that is my last note. So that.
What was your shady character this week?
Quark. His
horse.
Yeah.
There's no other answer.
He
was the one playing shady the whole time.
Yeah, for sure.
Who was your annoying character? You already told us. I forgot.
Brillia, but I still like him. I can't remember what it was that was annoying me about him, but he has a sing-songy delivery like Palpatine. Again, I keep dipping into those Star Wars waters, but I do like him overall, but he annoyed me.
I had a lot of trouble finding anyone in this episode that annoyed me because I really didn't. So I'm just going to choose Quark's cousin because he got caught.
That's a good one. That's good.
Quark needs Quark. It's just hard for Quark to find good help. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I wanted Quark to get his deal in the end. Who are you having a drink with?
Coleos, because Kenneth Mars, whoever he plays, I love those characters, and so I want to have a drink with Kenneth Mars if he was still here. But if it's Coleos, I'll take Coleos because I'm
gonna have a drink with Dax and get all the hot goss on the station on who's with who and who's gonna crush on who.
That's also good.
Honestly, while I'm not, I certainly try not to be like that, although I fail sometimes. She just made it seem so fun. And she made it seem harmless. Like, yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why every time she's on a shuttle, that's what happens. Hot goss happens. And I thought it was even part of the conversation. It was like, wasn't that part of the conversation? Was like, why do you care? And she was like, why wouldn't you? Or whatever, more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dax has a way where it's, first of all, she's not secretive or whispery about it. She just talks to everybody about whatever it is. And like she said, like when you get as old as she is, who cares about impropriety? You just say what's on your mind.
I think whatever the trill that she's housing or whatever, I think that's their character. It's like, whatever, buddy, which I think is why Cisco loves them and everything else. Cisco doesn't necessarily just love them because they look like Terry Farrell.
Right.
Whatever. But
no, we're gonna get another episode where we meet all the different hosts and see who makes up Dax. Okay. That's really cool. Yeah, it's gonna be neat. Cool. It's gonna be neat. All right. So it's coming. Ranking the episode.
I'm gonna guess the Terry Farrell one is still the best.
I mean,
you know what? Don't tell me. Don't tell me.
It's a good one. But I'm Terry Farrell doesn't play all the hosts. I
know that. I mean, I guess that part. Yeah.
I'm not going to guess who does play them, but that's fine. We'll get to there.
Don't tell me.
Ranking the episode, I'm kind of torn to where we even start because I think it was a pretty darn good episode.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also been a pretty darn good season. I don't want to start too high.
Sure.
Let's just start with the alternate where the other changeling comes on board, like the necklace that wrecks the havoc.
Which one was that?
When Odo finds like the statue and the necklace, and there's like another changeling that gets on board, and it kind of mind controls Odo briefly.
What was the name of the episode?
The alternate.
Oh, yeah, I just heard. Oh, the alternate episode. Okay, which one? All right, that makes sense. Oh, there's. Oh yeah. And Odo melts down and all that stuff. This is definitely, I shouldn't say it's definitely recency bias, but I know I'm going to go above.
Yep, me too. Above that's The Siege, which was the third part of the 3-part opener. And Frank Langella and Steven Weber.
Yeah.
We got to go below that, right?
Yeah, this episode's confounding because I liked a lot of it, but I also wasn't like, as I started.
A couple weak parts, yeah.
The thing that hung the moon, it was like, well, we kind of did this, but it's a variation.
Honestly, I think the alternate got artificially ranked higher because I would have gone below like Cardassians in the Circle, which are under the alternate.
Yeah.
But I would have put it above the alternate. And so that makes this stay higher than it should be. If we want to ignore that the alternate's not high, I don't remember which one.
I do like this episode. So where does that, in the overall, where would that put this?
If we put it above the alternate but below the Siege, that's 4th for the season of 16.
Okay.
Which is kind of high.
That does seem high.
But if we put it below the Cardassians and the Circle, then it could drop down to like 7. I think it definitely goes above Invasive Procedures, where the Dax symbiote's stolen by Jonathan Glover.
Yes.
Really, it's the alternate that's throwing me off. I swear it must be you and Keith that ranked it high.
That's probably it could be.
Because I don't think I liked the alternate that much. So if we ignore the alternate, if you want to knock it down below the Cardassians or the Circle, I would be okay with that.
So you want to go put it 7 or 4?
We could. I think it's either 4 or 7. It depends because the alternate's throwing me off.
4 seems too high, but 7 seems too low.
Too low, right? We could put it between Cardassians and the Circle. That would put it 6, which... Because I do think it's better than Cardassians. The Cardassian orphan that was raised by the Bajorans. I'm sorry, I think Cardassians was better. Yeah. But the Circle, which was the middle of the 3-parter, was third, but it wasn't like stellar. So if we want to do that as a compromise position,
yeah, let's do that.
Okay,
and then we can blame Keith for it later. Keith at IABD presents stuck.
Always, it's sweet. Star Trek: The Next Generation. Eye the Beholder, as a young lieutenant aboard the Enterprise, commits suicide. His shipmates deal with the law. I know, dark. And Deanna deals with her feelings, and I'm going to stop reading the IMDb because I feel like that's a major spoiler. I think the suicide spoiler enough. I'm not going to read the second half of the gnosis.
Yeah, fair point.
Still, Suicide and Starfleet's got to be exceedingly rare. I'm intrigued.
Yeah. Oh, you would think.
So,
except for
until then,
and then
live long
in your holographic world and prosper.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?